Hey guys, it's me, Sonia, and as you can see, there's a rabbit behind me because I chose to decorate my house today in preparation for Resurrection Sunday. So, yes, you see a rabbit behind me, but there are also crosses above me to remember Jesus' sacrifice and then his resurrection. So, yay. Um, but that's not what I wanted to talk about today. So it is Thursday. It might not be Thursday by the time I publish this because I'm probably going to be long-winded. But Thursday is my story time day, so I wanted to have a story time. And today's story time is going to be about what's it going to be about? Oh, okay. So I don't my how am I gonna say it? My first heartbreak. That's what I'm gonna do. And I know my story times lately have been a lot about relationships, but that's what's on my mind right now. So, um, my first heartbreak. Let's talk about it. So, so the year was 2005 or 2006. And I had just started high school. Yes, I'm a baby, guys. I'm a baby. I just started high school. Um, and I'm a freshman. And I don't know if I mentioned to you guys, but I love strangers. Like I'm the most outgoing with people that I don't know. People that I know make me shy, but people that I don't know, I'm super outgoing. So it's my freshman year. I'm geeked about life. I don't know anybody, so I'm talking to everybody, and it's great. Um, we have orientation. I'm the only one answering questions, raising my hand, like doing the most because I just love not knowing people. It's really weird, I know. But yeah, I'm just having a good old time. And let's see, a week goes by, maybe even 2 weeks goes by, and I see this guy walking in the hall. Let me just paint the picture of what he looked like. Oh goodness. So he is 6'2", 6'3", 6'3". Um, Brown skin, a little bit lighter than my complexion. He has an afro. Imagine Steve Harvey when he had hair. He has these broad shoulders. Kind of skinny, but he has a little muscle on him. Has a teeny tiny waist, some hips on him. And these muscular thighs. And guess what, guys? He has a butt, and he's walking towards me. Now, of course, I can't see his butt from the front, but once he walked past, I look, 'cause I look, yeah. So, anyways, I see this guy. He looks like no one else at my school, like no one else. Mainly because back then, people didn't really wear afros like that. Most guys were wearing braids or their hair was cut off, but he was wearing an afro, a well-maintained afro, I must say. Um, and he walked past me, and I was like, "Wow!" And so, because I'm outgoing, because I don't know him, I turned right around and I walked with him. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" And and that's how we started the conversation. Um, I basically walked with him. 'Cause I actually did that a lot. Like if I saw somebody, I would just walk with them in their direction for like minutes. They'd be like, "Don't you have class?" I'd be like, "Oh yeah, class." Anywho, so that's how I met him. Okay, um, it's the story of my heartbreak. So don't get too attached. But yeah, that's how I met him. I'm not gonna tell you his name, but if he's watching, he knows who he is. Everybody knows who he is. Because when I like somebody, I go all in. And at that point in time, he was the first guy like himself that I've ever met, and so everybody knew that I liked him. So let's go a couple weeks after meeting him. I'm into his everything because he is a weird guy. Um, Growing up, I always felt like a weirdo. I always felt like I stood out, And in order to survive elementary and middle school, I had to assimilate, and I hated it with a passion because everybody was so boring to me. Like, they were so boring. They always did the same things, always wore the same clothes, always had the same hairdo, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't like it. It's stupid. But it wasn't until, that that freshman year where I met this guy, and he was a weirdo like me, and I'm like, dude, like, first off, he was confident, okay? And he was a weirdo. I was like, I'm hiding my weirdness, and here you are just everywhere, just extra. And he made me laugh. I like to mention this whenever possible. I don't laugh too much from people. Like, I'll laugh at comedians, but like if you're in my face and you're telling a joke and stuff, I'll smile, but I won't like hee hee ha ha dying on the floor laugh. So it's very rare that I laugh. So this guy made me laugh, and he was weird, and I was like, he must be an angel. He sent from heaven. Like, I love this dude. I literally said that. Literally said that. And anybody who asked, I would be like, "Yeah, I want him. I want him." Because I told you guys I was super outgoing. Because I didn't know anybody there. I would be like, "Yeah, I want him." They'd be like, I would see him like from across the room or across, the building or something like that, and I'd be like, "You see that guy? That's gonna be my husband." I would tell anybody who asked, like teachers, staff workers, janitors, like people in my class, people in his class, because I never had any classes with him. I just tell everybody, like, I'm going to marry him. And whenever I could get time with him by myself, I would. So finally, one day, one of his friends come up to me and they're like, so and so likes you. And I'm like, what? And they're like, so and so likes you. And they're like, my husband likes me. Because I was doing the most. I was like, "Oh, my husband likes me. That's great." And so I go find him because, like I mentioned, our classes, we don't have any classes together. We don't have lunch periods together. Like, we have nothing together. I literally just know him from seeing him in the hall. Um, and so one day he's in the computer lab because we have different labs in the school, but for the ninth graders, there's a set computer lab. So either you can take the computers, like we have individual computers that like you can put in a cart for different classes, or you can go in the computer lab. So he was in the computer lab working during his lunchtime, and it just so happens that overlapped into where my lunchtime was, and I saw him, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I get some time with him by myself. I just found out he liked me, and I was telling everybody that I liked him, and I was, all into everything. So I was talking to him. And he was working, so he wasn't really paying me a whole bunch of attention. I'm just talking to him, giggling and flirting and doing all this stuff, this extra cutesy stuff. And I'm like, so, I like you. And he just looks at me. He doesn't say anything back. And he just keeps working. And I'm like, so, I think we're gonna be together. And he looks at me again. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be together. You know what? As far as I'm concerned, we're together. And then I just walk out. I walk out of the computer lab. Like, that's it. I asserted our relationship. I did, and he didn't say anything about it. He didn't say no, crazy girl, get away or anything. He just looked at me and watched me walk away. And so I told my best friend, I was like, hey, so remember that guy that I'm in love with? Yeah, we're together now. And just as quick as I said that, everybody knew that I was with him, which was interesting because I told you guys in ninth grade I was super outgoing because I didn't know anybody. So I was flirting with everybody. So they're like, how are you in a relationship with this guy when you've been flirting with everybody? Now, when I say I'm flirting, I'm not doing anything physical. I told you guys I was a Christian, even though at that time I wasn't saved. Um, I didn't do any physical things with them. When I say flirting, I mean just talking with them, laughing with them, giggling with them, having their numbers, calling them, stuff like that. Not anything physical. I wasn't a whore. I was just a flirt. So when news spread that he's my boyfriend, people are like, "How are you doing this?" And you're talking to all these guys. I'm like, I'm just talking to him. Like, everybody knows that's my man. Ninth grade was special. Anywho, so word spreads, and then he comes up to me and he's like, "So we're together?" And I'm like, "I told you we're together." He's like, "Okay." That's what he said. And I'm like, "So can I have your number?" And he's like, "Yeah." So he writes it down. No, no, wait, wait, no. I asked him for his number. He didn't give it to me. He says, "Well, I'll have your just give me your number." So I gave him my number because he didn't give me his number. So I go out of town. I think it was like a Friday or something like that. So I go out of town because on the weekends we usually go out of town. Like I told you guys, other videos like during on the weekends usually we would go to Canada because we're literally like not too far from Canada. We go to Canada like it was another part of the state or something like that, or we'll go visit my family members that are a few hours away. Like every weekend, we just did that every weekend. So I'm out of town and I'm having dinner with one of my cousins, and I can remember it. I can remember it like it was yesterday. We're at this Asian sit down restaurant, and I'm eating, I'm enjoying my food and all this stuff, and I'm a little sad because he didn't call me. Like I think it was maybe I gave him my number on like a Friday, and it was Sunday, and he hadn't called, and I was just so distraught. Like, my man hasn't called me. Ah, oh no, my man hasn't called me. And so he calls me, but I'm at dinner with my cousin, so I'm like, "Hey," and I'm super excited, and I'm smiling and all this stuff. I'm like, "Hey, you finally called," and blah 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 blah. And my cousin's giving me this look because it's my older cousin. It's not like a cousin my age. I think she was like in her 50s or something like that. My cousin. She's looking at me. I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Can I call you back?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay." And they hang up. But I'm super excited, like, "Yay, he finally called! Yes!" And my cousin's like, "So who was that? Why are you smiling like that?" My sister's like, "Oh, that's her boyfriend." And I'm like, "Shut up!" But I was waiting for his call like the whole weekend. He should have called me sooner, but whatever. So we finished dinner, and I'm like, "Hey, can we go? Can we go? Can we please? Can we just go? I need to go. Can we go? I need to return this call." Like, so I finally get to my grandparents' house, and I seclude myself in one of the bedrooms, and I call him back, and he doesn't answer. And I'm like, "Seriously, dude? Like, I've been waiting for your call all weekend. You call me at the most inappropriate time, and then you don't answer." So I'm irritated, right? So I go back to where my family is, and I'm sad. And they're like, "Sonny, what's wrong? You were just so happy and all this stuff, and you couldn't wait to get here and blah 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 blah." And I'm like, nothing." My sister's like, "She's having boy problems." So he calls me back, and I'm like, "Yes." So my family look at me like this girl's going through something. So I seclude myself in a bedroom again, and I'm talking to him like, "Hey, what are you doing? Blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Why didn't you call me earlier?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I thought about calling you, but I had to do blah, 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 blah." Whatever excuse he gave me, it wasn't good enough because I was waiting all weekend for his call, but I was happy that he was on the phone. So he was talking to me about how our relationship started, and he's like, "So we're together now," and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, "Yeah, we're together." And you're like, "Did you tell everybody?" And it's like, "I just told one person, and she told everybody." And you know. So that was that. I said, "So tell me a little bit about yourself." And he started telling me, that he had so many siblings, and that this is what he does in his free time, and these are the shows he watches and stuff like that. And I'm like, "All right, cool." Um, because he was so weird, I loved it. I loved it. I loved everything about him. And even now, like, anywho, um, so that was that weekend. He finally called me. So that Monday, I'm telling my best friends. Like at the time, I had about four best friends. Like I told you guys, in ninth grade, I was super outgoing. So like everybody was, I wouldn't say everybody was my friend. I had some people that was just like, girl, you need to calm down. We don't even like you like that. But I had some close friends. So I had about four people that I call my best friends. And I'm telling them about my call, and they're like, you're just being extra girly. And and I'm in the middle of the hall, and like he walks by, and and the girls around me, they're like, "So you gonna go say hi to your man?" I'm like, "Ah, okay." And I legit run after him because he's a fast walker. Um, I legit run after him, and I'm like, "Hey." The problem is that, like I mentioned before, I was a flirt. So I'm saying hey to a bunch of guys, not just him. So his best friend comes by and I'm like, hey, I called you and blah, 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 blah. And he's looking at me like, you called him. Why are you calling him? But he didn't say anything to me. He's just, whatever. I'm like, I called you because blah, 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 blah. And then his best friend's like, yeah, well, blah, 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 blah. So, like I told you, like, I had a bunch of guys' numbers, but I wasn't like trying to date them. It was just kind of like, I'm being outgoing right now. I need some networking time. Like, you know, but that's just how it was. Also, there was this guy that I will tell you about in another video sometime, but he was an upperclassman. And for whatever reason, he liked me. And I thought that was cool. And like every time he saw me, he would shout out, "Hey, boo." And and I'd be like, "Hey." And so you can see how that might be a problem if I have a boyfriend and another boy, because he wasn't a man at the time, another boy is calling me his boo. And then also I would hug him periodically. So anywho, so we're together. I'm calling him a lot. Because I'm just so excited. Like, I can't get enough of this guy. I cannot get enough. Like, if you locked me in a room with him, I could not get enough of this guy. Like I he was just so weird. Like, I can't explain to you my personality. Like, I show it a little bit on here, but not like a whole lot. I'm a weirdo. Okay. I'm a weirdo. I wouldn't say I'm a nerd because I'm not like into like technology and like games and stuff, but I'm a weirdo. Like, how would I give you an example? When I was younger, I used to bark for the heck of it, like bark like a dog because it freaked people out. Like that's the only reason why I did it, to get the reaction. Weirdo, okay? Um, I used to go out in the rain with no umbrella, or I would go out in the rain with an umbrella just to prove that I have an umbrella, but I wouldn't put it up just because I felt like people wanted me to get dry and not be wet. Like I'm just a weirdo. I just do random rebellious stuff for no reason, and he got it. And I was like, yes, this is my husband. Like, there's nobody else as weird as us. We're a great weird team. But the thing about that is that he didn't like all the attention I was giving him. Um, he was a little bit older than me. Um, a little bit. He had a little bit more experience and stuff than me, and so for him, he felt like I was smothering him because I liked him so much. I wanted to know about his everything. And the thing is, he took the bus. So I never took the bus. I had no clue about buses. I assumed they were like cars because my father picked me up every day. My father took me to school every day. So I just assumed you would get on a bus like you get on a car and then you would go to your destination. That was my assumption. Turns out when you get on a bus, you have to take several buses to get to your destination. I didn't know that. So he would literally take 2 or 3 hours to get from the school to his house. In the meantime, I would be calling him. Like, it took me about 5 minutes to go from my school to my house. And when I got home, I would do my homework as soon as possible. I'd make something to eat and then I would call him. And he usually wouldn't answer. So I would leave him a long message about how much I missed him and how much I wanted to see him and how much I wanted to hear his voice. because I was doing the most and I loved this dude. Like he was everything that I wanted at the time. Everything that I wanted at the time. I didn't even know that God made people like him. Like he was everything that I wanted at the time. Every single thing I wanted at the time. He was tall. I mean, he wasn't necessarily super handsome, but he was tall. He had these broad shoulders. He had a tiny waist. Like, imagine the physique on him. Like, and he had a butt. Like, I didn't realize I was a butt person until him. Like, he had a nice butt. Um, he was weird. Like I liked his everything. And people be like, Sonny, why do you like him? He's a weirdo. And like at the time I told you guys, like I talked to everybody, I flirted with everybody, I was outgoing and all this stuff. And he necessarily didn't do that. He was rude to people. People were like, "Why do you like him? He's blah 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 blah. He doesn't even wear chapstick. Look, his pants are flooding. Like he's rude. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else. He doing all this stuff." And we're like, "I love him." People are like, "Girl, come on now." And so you can see, I root for the underdog. Anyway, a couple of weeks go by and he stops answering my calls. Apparently those long messages about how much I miss him and want to hear his voice were too much. Apparently I text him too much and too often. Um, Sometimes when I couldn't get him on his cell phone because his cell phone died, I would call his house phone and his mama would be like, "He's still not here. He's still on the bus." Or his sister would be like, "Girl, stop calling. He's not here." So I guess that got tiresome. And also me telling people that we're gonna get married and that he's my future husband and that we're gonna have so many babies. I guess that became too much. Clingy is an understatement. I wanted this man. I wanted him with everything in my being. The only thing was, while we were dating, I got saved. Yep, I accepted salvation while we were dating, and I realized, like, hey, I'm idolizing this man. I'm idolizing the heck out of him. Like, if he told me, hey, prove that you love me by robbing the store, I'd be like, which one? What do you need out of the store? If he said, get butt naked right here in this hallway to prove that you love me, I would have got butt naked. I'm telling you, I love this man. I loved him. And be sure I was the first one to say I love you. And we had only dated for like a month, maybe a month and a half. I told him I loved him. I told him I wanted to have his babies. I told him I wanted to marry him. I told him I would do anything for him. Like I was just too much. But I never met anyone like him. I'd never seen anyone like him. Like I've seen tall guys. I've seen guys with broad shoulders. I've seen guys with skinny waist and hips and I never saw a guy with a butt. I don't think I was looking, but he had everything, everything, and I didn't know what to do with that, so I expressed it in the way that I could. Also, so at the time, um, I I used to go to therapy because I didn't know how to express myself. When I was younger, I was fat. And, some people pick on fat people. They call them fatso and all this stuff. Well, when people call me fatso and all this stuff, I didn't say, whoa, it's me. I would do something to hurt these people. Oh, you're going to hurt my feelings? I'm going to hurt you back. So somebody called me fat. I kick him in the dick. Some girl called me fat. I would throw a textbook or something at her. Like, you're not going to sit here and hurt my feelings and you not get hurt. So I used to go to therapy to control my anger and figure out why I'm mad. I know why I'm mad. She just called me fat, but whatever. I had to go to therapy for that. Um, in therapy, they encouraged me to write out my feelings, and then in school we learned about poetry. So I used to write poetry to express myself instead of kick boys in their dicks for calling me names or throw stuff at people. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that, but I mean, all they had to do is shut up. But whatever. Um, So anywho, I told you guys how I was well, I was obsessed about this guy. And so in my journals, I would write poetry about this guy. Let me tell you, I was idolizing him like he was God himself. Like I was doing I, anything less than praying. I didn't pray to him, but I was doing a lot of idolatry for this man. And I had a book of poems just for him. Every single poem in that book was for him. And everybody knew it because I told him. I told my friends, I told his friends, I told people we didn't like, I told people that hated him, I told people that liked him. Like, this is my man. We're going to get married, and this is my book of love. Woo! Clingy is an understatement. So one day, he calls me, and like I told you, on the weekends I would go out of town. So he calls me, and he's basically like, "Hey, oh, I forgot to mention, he stopped talking to me for about 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks, I don't see him at school, or if I do see him, he acts like he's too busy to talk to me. Like, so and so just called me, like a teacher just called him or something like that. Or I only have 2 seconds to go to the bathroom before my class starts. And I told you our classes were at different times, our lunch periods at different times. So literally the only time I saw him was in the hallway. So now I'm not seeing him in the hallway. He's not returning my texts or my calls or anything. So at that time, I didn't know cues that guys gave. He was one of my first boyfriends. So I didn't know that guys play games like that. Like I wish he would have just told me like, "Hey, it's over," but he just ghosted me. Um so 2 weeks of not talking to me, he calls me out of the blue and I'm like, "Hey, haven't seen you around." And he's like, "Yeah, so about that, I like you, but you're just a little too much." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you just do too much." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Well, you write poems about me." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's how I express that I like you." And he's like, "Yeah, but I just think you do too much. Like you call at my house, you text my phone, like you telling people that we're getting married, like you just too much." And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And he's like, "You're being demanding. Like you want all this stuff and blah 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 blah." Like after he said demanding, I kind of zoned out. Like I honestly can't remember this conversation. Um, but he's like, "I think we should break up." And for the first time in life, I felt like the Grinch. You know that scene in the Grinch with Jim Carrey where his heart is getting bigger. I felt like that, but not with my heart getting bigger. Like I felt like I was gonna die. Like I felt my heart go like boom, 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 and I was just sitting there on the phone. And my heart's going boom, 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 and I feel like I need some oxygen. I'm like, and I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I think we should break up. Uh, and it did not compute. My system wasn't prepared to hear that. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta call you back. And I hang up and I call my best friend. Like I told you, I have about four friends I call my best friends. There's one in particular that was really close to me, and I call her and I'm like, um, I'm not gonna say his name, but so and so just broke up with me. And she's like, what? Because at that time, she like we got with our boyfriends at the same time. But she wasn't obsessed with her boyfriend because she had boyfriends in middle school and elementary school, so she knew how it worked, but I didn't. So I didn't know how it worked. But she was rooting for us. She was like, "Oh, you guys make such a cute couple. I just wish he did this for you. I just wish he did that for you." It's like we never held hands. We never hugged. Like I would be hugging his friends. His friends would hug me hello. His friends would, well, they didn't hold my hand, but I was just closer physically with his friends than him because he didn't want to hold my hand. He didn't want to hug me goodbye. Like he just didn't. Even when we went, like we only went out on a date once. And I mean, okay, we were 14, but still, we only went out on a date once to the movies. And even then, he sat a seat away from me. I literally had to sit next to him. And I mean, the conversation when we were in the movies was okay, but it was kind of just like buddies type of thing. But whatever. So my friend was rooting for us, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You know, he's a jerk, and nobody likes him anyway. I don't even know why you liked him. Like, he's rude. I'm gonna tell him about his stuff. You want me to tell him about his stuff? I'm gonna call him right quick." I'm like, "No, girl, don't call him. Don't call him." And so while I'm talking to her, he calls me back, and he's like, "So are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Meanwhile, the whole time I was talking to my friend, I was boohooing, I was crying, I was snotting, I was just everywhere. And he's like, "You're okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, "Well, we can still be friends and all this stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever," and I hang up. um, that was a tough day, and literally every time I thought about us breaking up, like my heart was like boom, 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 and that's how I had my first heartbreak. Um, it was it was epic, and I honestly, I don't think it was the fact that he broke up with me that was the problem. It was it was kind of because I wasn't expecting it. Um if someone told me, "Hey, I love you so much, I'll do anything for you," I don't know if I'll break up with them. Now we could have said, "Okay, let's make it work. How about you just tone it down and we just stay together?" But he just said, "You're doing too much. I don't think we should be together." And because I wasn't expecting it, it hurt my heart. And because he was my first real boyfriend, I guess. And I don't even know if I should say real boyfriend because we were still kids at the time, but it just hurt my heart. It hurt my heart. Every time I thought about him, my heart would start racing. Like sometimes I'll be in class not paying attention to the teacher because I'm thinking about him and my heart is racing and I feel like I need an inhaler or something because I need to catch my breath. And then all of a sudden, after our breakup, I started seeing him everywhere. Every every single place you can think, I would see him. I would see him before school, which I never saw him before school. Like I would get to school early. I would never see him. Like he'd always show up late. All of a sudden we're broken up. I see him before school and he's always walking in my direction. Or I'll be walking in the hall and I would try to walk past him and he would start walking with me to talk with me. I'm like, "Excuse me, sir, I have to go to class." All of a sudden, my friends are telling me, "Oh, he's looking for you." And I'm like, "Looking for me for what? He broke up with me. He doesn't want to talk to me." All of a sudden, I'm at lunch. He's coming into the lunchroom like, "Hey, we need to talk." Talk about what? Um, so I'm over here butt hurt, and he's trying to talk to me. Finally, he gets me by myself. I don't know how this happens. Oh, yeah, I do. So, at my school, I don't know how to describe my school without telling you exactly where I go to school at because it's a really unique place that I go to school. It's not like a regular school building. It's actually a school building in something, but I can't tell you because you guys already know I'm a Detroiter, so there's only so many schools that my school could be in if I describe to you my school. But in order to get to the bathroom, we have to walk like almost a mile away inside the building. I can't tell you where I went to school because I just don't want you to know. Anyway, so he intercepts me coming out of the bathroom. So there's no like where the bathroom is, you can't see any of the classes, any of the teachers, anything like that. So it's a long way back to the classroom. So he intercepts me and he's like, oh, I forgot to mention. So the day before he intercepts me, he texts me and he's like, "Hi." And I'm like, "Hi." Just give him the very basic dry text. He's like, "So, I think I love you." And I don't respond to the text. And that's why I'm also thrown off because I told my friend about this and she's like, "What?" He said, "What?" And I'm like, "Look at the text." He ignores me this time. He breaks up with me. Then he decides he wants to find me, and now he sends me this text that he thinks he loves me. Well, I don't care if you think you love me. Like, you broke my heart. But so when he intercepts me coming out of the bathroom, like, I'm a little pissed. I'm just a little pissed. Like, how dare you? And he's like, so I text you and you didn't respond, and I'm like, oh, you text me? What'd you text me? Because I wanted to hear him say it. He's like, I love you, and I said, oh, you didn't say that you love me. You said you think you love me. That's different. I know for a fact that I love you and I want to be with you and I want to have your kids and be married to you and spend the rest of my life with you. But you think you love me. And he's like, well, blah, 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 spitting whatever game he feels like spitting. And he's like, I haven't seen you around lately. Where you been at? I was like, oh, so I ghosted you like you ghosted me and now you have a problem with it? He's like, well, I didn't really ghost you. I just kind of wanted time to be by myself. And I was like, I want time to be by myself too, but you're still here. I was being rude. So rude, but I was hurt. Like I was hurt. Like I told you, I was a weirdo all my life, and when I finally find somebody compatible with me, I was happy about it. And I clung too hard. I'll admit now, looking back, that now that I'm married with kids, I admit I was doing too much. If my kids are ever allowed to date, which I probably won't let them date just for this reason, I would probably tell them, like, hey, don't be clingy, because some people take it the wrong way. I just thought that was the way that I showed that I really like him. There's so many fickle relationships when you're younger, and I knew for a fact that that relationship was real. Even now, like, in another video, I told you, like, before I got married to my husband, before we started dating, and before we decided that we are going to be together the rest of our lives, like, I was on a dating site and I saw his profile and I read his profile and I said, I still love this dude. Years later, he's working at a health food store. The health food store. And I'm still looking at his profile like, that was my man. And what's weird? So we matched on a website. It just confirmed the what I knew in ninth grade, but it didn't work out. Um, After he told me he loved me in person, it was just kind of like, you broke my heart. I'm not forgiving this. Um, I can't. Well, it's not even that I couldn't forgive him. Um, there are also some other factors going on. So I told you guys I was a flirt. I was a flirt. So he didn't say much about me talking to his friends, but I knew it was an issue. But at the time, I was like, I told you guys I was outgoing because I didn't know them. Like the next year, once I knew everybody, I wasn't as flirty. But the upperclassmen that called me his boo was still calling me his boo the next year. And I mean, I don't know. I had a lot of fun in ninth grade. I told you guys I got saved. Once I got saved, I kind of toned myself down a little bit. Um, yeah, but that's how that was my first heartbreak, and I do not hope that my children ever have to experience that. And I will tell you how I intend to make sure that they don't experience that, but I don't know if you guys are going to agree with it or not, because in the Western world it's frowned upon. But let me just say this: if my kids don't have to experience it, they won't. And I'm just gonna leave it there. Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.